The sun scorched the sky above the ancient city of Velmer, where spires kissed clouds and silver dragons flew between crystal towers. At the heart of the city's power sat the Skyglass Citadel, home to the wealthiest man in the realm, Lord Kalen Damaris, a billionaire not by gold alone, but by ownership of floating mines, elemental reservoirs, and the trade of magical commodities across the 5 kingdoms. But Kalen was cold as obsidian, known more for his ruthlessness than his riches. His world was perfect, polished, and unshakable until the day it shattered. It happened during the reconstruction of a collapsed bridge in the lower district, an area he rarely visited. The bridge connected 2 trade routes vital to his supply lines, and after an elemental quake, it was destroyed. Rather than send his usual agents, Kalen descended in his obsidian skycraft himself, surrounded by his guards, more to silence accusations of indifference than out of care. The air in the lower district was heavy with dust and the clang of tools. Among dozens of workers, one caught his eye not because she looked particularly striking, but because she worked like the wind, swift, precise, untiring. She wielded a glowing hammer, enchanted with runes, her arms muscular and movements fluid, like a dance born of grit and rhythm. Her name was Alira. Kalen didn't know what drew his gaze. Maybe it was the way she ignored the whispers around her when his skycraft landed. Perhaps it was how she didn't look up, even as guards in plated armor strode past her. Or maybe it was because when a load of enchanted stone slipped from its levitation rune and fell toward him, it was Alira who launched forward, tackled him out of its path, and took the brunt of fall herself. The impact cracked her ribs, but she stood up and dusted herself off before any of his guards could even blink. "You all right, rich boy," she said, offering him her calloused hand. Kalen had never been called that in his life. No one dared, but instead of being offended, he laughed, a raw, unfamiliar sound that startled even him. He ordered his best healers to tend to her, but Alira refused. "I've got work to finish. That bridge isn't going to build itself." She limped back to her crew, and Kalen stood there watching her, stunned by something he couldn't name. Days passed. He returned again, this time without his skycraft or guards. He wore a worker's cloak enchanted to mask his identity. He wanted to see her again, to understand what pulled at his chest like a forgotten memory. He found her beside the riverbank, forging a rune into stone with her hammer, sparks dancing around her like fireflies. "Need help?" he asked. She glanced at him. "You don't have workers' hands. I can learn," he said. She shrugged, handed him a pickaxe. Then learn, and he did. For weeks, Kalen, unknown to all, worked beside her. He learned how to mix mortar with ground sapphire for magical reinforcement, how to set levitation runes with precision, how to haul enchanted beams with care. But most of all, he learned how to listen to the stories of workers, to the laughter of children running barefoot through stone dust, to Alira's sharp wit and endless curiosity. She told him stories of how she used to craft miniature bridges from fallen twigs as a child, how her mother was a stonemason who taught her to read the language of rock. She didn't ask many questions about him, but when she did, they were simple. "Why do you want to build?" Or "What's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen?" He thought of glittering gold halls, sky palaces, waterfalls of light, but none compared to the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled. Eventually, he told her the truth. She didn't speak for a long time after that. Then she said, "You lied to me." "I had to," he said. "I didn't know how else to be near you. I should hate you," she whispered, "but I don't." The next day, she was gone. Kalen searched the city, summoned diviners, even offered a fortune to anyone who could find her. But no one knew where she had gone. Days bled into weeks, and still nothing. He threw himself into rebuilding that bridge, finishing what they'd started. It became more than infrastructure. It was a monument to her. On the day it was completed, the bridge glowed softly under the moonlight, runes humming in quiet harmony. He stood at its center, alone, when a voice behind him said, "You forgot to bind the wind rune to the eastern arch." He turned, she stood there, dusty and sun, kissed her hammer strapped across her back. "Alira, you never looked for me in the mountains," she said. "I went to find my mother's old forge. I didn't know where to look. You didn't ask the stones," she said, half smiling. "They remember everything." He stepped toward her. "Why did you leave?" "Because I had to know if you were serious," she said. "About building, about me. I needed time to know if I wanted to be part of your world, and I don't," she said. "Not your old world." His heart sank. "But I want to build a new one," she continued, "with you. Stone by stone, not made of gold, but of grit and laughter and firelight." He laughed again, that same raw sound. "Then let's build it." Years passed, and the world did change. Not with grand proclamations or royal decrees, but with small shifts. Richer workers' rights, floating homes for laborers, enchanted tools made affordable, bridges not just of stone, but of understanding. Kaelin and Alira, builders of two worlds, crafted something more powerful than wealth: trust. They were seen walking together through the districts often, sometimes hand in hand, sometimes arguing over rune placement, but always together. She wore no crown, he bore no guards, and yet people stepped aside with respect. At the foot of their first bridge, a plaque reads, "Built by hands of stone and a heart of change." And if you stand there at dusk, you might still hear the echo of hammers, laughter, and a story whispered on the wind. A story of when a billionaire's world was changed forever by a woman who never needed gold to shine. Thank you for reading this story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more heartfelt tales like this. Your support helps keep the magic alive.